Welcome to Unleashing Happiness with Cecilia Hendricks, the podcast where we'll share ways to change your mindset, change your habits, and change your life. Welcome. I'm super excited to get started on today's episode. This is my second episode of the podcast, and I have to say, I am loving this journey so far, and I really like sharing the content that I am. Today's episode, I'd like to go over a few things. One of those being to really start paying attention to the way that you talk to yourself in the conversations that you have within your own head, either with yourself or kind of practicing the way that maybe another event might go for you. The other thing that I would like to talk to you about today is some questions to ask yourself so that you can get really clear on what you want. No matter what school of thought that you're in, one of the most important things to really ask yourself to get started is, what is it that I do want? I spoke before on the last podcast very briefly, and also on my YouTube channel, about how you need to get clear about what you want and not only identify with what you don't want. It can be very easy to get caught up in what you don't want versus focusing on what you do want. And I think it's this really small mind shift that will help you quite a bit more than you may even think. And I found that it helped me quite a bit. I've shared that I am a follower of Neville Goddard, and that is something that Neville Goddard talks about a lot, that really when you get down to it, you don't want to affirm or look at something against what you don't want. You really want to put your focus on what it is that you do want. And again, this is a very subtle shift a lot of the times. I think it's very easy to get caught up without realizing it, that you're focusing way too much on what it is you don't want and not putting your focus into what you do want. So the first question that I would always ask myself, and one that I found to be absolutely remarkable, was really just asking myself, okay, how do I want to feel? If I don't really know what I want, what is the feeling that I want? And even if I do know what I want, what is the core feeling that's behind it? Because that's what we really want to get to, is what does it feel like to have what I want? How do I want to feel? So if you're looking at, let's say, a lover, and you really want, somebody in your life to love you, what is the feeling that you want? Is it contentment? Is it feeling loved? Is it feeling appreciated? Is it feeling safe? There's a lot of kind of feelings in that. And I always broke it down for myself even a little bit further to say, when I crawl into bed tonight, how do I want to feel about my day? What is it that I want to think about how my day went? When I was first getting this stuff launched and I was reading the book 2 Week Notice and trying to decide what is something that I can launch and share, I asked, what is it that I want to feel when I go to bed? The question just kind of popped into my head and I ran with it. And I said, all right, let's start really thinking about this. What is it that I want to feel? And I realized that when I go to bed, I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel like I helped somebody with something that I have learned, or a way that I'm sharing some content. Because one thing that I definitely have found is that a lot of people can share the same message, but you may resonate with somebody in a different way than you would even me. So you may listen to my stuff and say, you know what, this is not for me. And that's okay. I hope you find somebody that can really help you figure out the things that you want to figure out. Or you may listen to me and say, wow, I never thought about it this way, and this really helped me. And so when I got into bed at night, I wanted to feel like I really shared something, that maybe I helped somebody, or that using one of the things that has helped me helped them in their life, maybe in a way that they had never really considered or thought of. And I still find teachers that way, that I, listen to them and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I didn't think about it this way. Or this is kind of, opening something up for me that I had never really considered. But when I got into bed, I wanted to feel like I had done something for my future. I want to start feeling more freedom in my life. I want to spend a lot more time with my kids. It's important to me that I get to do the things that I want to do and have some freedom and share with people. And when it came down to it, I was like, well, I think, I really want to be kind of a motivational speaker. I really admire, Mel Robbins is one that I think of quite a lot. I admire her and the content that she puts out and the way that she talks to people, and the way that people kind of connect with her. And I want to do something similar, but in my own way, because I'm definitely not her and I do things differently. And so when I started to think about that, I was like, okay, what can I do that's in alignment with that? What steps and what thoughts can I have that would align me to this way that I want to feel? And that's where I started. And I have to say, it has been amazing. So I've shared before and I'll share again. I believe God is in absolutely everything. There's nothing that is not God. And that is my personal belief. And I definitely will continue to say it because I believe it so strongly. And I believe that when you get really clear on what it is that you want to feel and you start to identify the things that you want, suddenly you just start getting these ideas and I have already filled 3 notebooks of things that I want to talk about and I want to share and the ways that I want to do them and the people that I hope to help and the ways to help myself. And they just start to download essentially into your brain. And I really believe that that's God, where you direct your attention is what you're going to start to receive and start to see. And whether you think that's life source, God, the universe, whatever kind of deal that it is, some other timeline that you're connecting with, whatever your belief system is in that, I really think, and I have found in my own life, that when I start to focus on this is what I want, this is how I want to feel, those things just start to kind of naturally pop up into my mind. It's almost like I'm being just downloaded information, like, oh, sweet lady, you finally got it. Let me give you all these ideas. And this is the stuff that you should be doing. And it just starts to become very encouraging. And it's not to say that everything's not difficult. For example, I was filming this podcast to get started and got 25 minutes in and my computer just kind of stopped. And I don't know what actually happened to the recording that I did. So, but it didn't seem to connect and to hold on to it. So I had to scrap that and start over. And I was a little frustrated about that. And I think there's going to be, human frustration in life. But again, we have the choice on how long we dwell there. And I decided, well, this is my opportunity to try again and to get it a bit more right and to use a different system to do it is honestly kind of what I had decided. But instead of getting frustrated and throwing stuff around and being like, forget it, I'm just not going to do it. This is my sign. This is dumb. I don't want to do this. Those thoughts never crossed my mind because I've shifted my mindset into one of believing this is what I'm going to do. And sometimes there's going to be some bumps in the roads and that's okay. I can handle the bumps in the road. But I was able to quickly shift and say, this is how I want to feel. This is what I want to think when I go to bed. I want to feel successful. I want to feel like I have freedom. I want to feel like I was motivating to people with the content that I share and motivating to myself. Making this content is definitely a reminder to me of how I've seen these experiences play out in my life, and how important it is to me that I share because I know some of it is woo-woo and I will definitely be talking about a lot more woo-woo stuff than I have so far. But I have found that it works, it happens. And I have been able to test it repeatedly, and see that God answers prayers, especially when you start to figure out kind of what I think is the key to praying, which is to go quietly within and focus on something that you want versus focusing against what you don't want. And I think that's such a huge key. And so deciding what it is that you want and what would be in alignment with those wants is the best place to start. I mean, it really gives you the insight of where it is you want to be. So let's say that you want to be loved. You're, currently single and you would like to have a relationship. Well, if your thoughts as you go to bed is, oh, I so desperately want a relationship, I'm so lonely, I have seen and experienced that that is what you continue to receive is more feelings of loneliness, more feelings of feeling desperate, more feelings of not having what you want and not being able to find that person who will just light you up and be your partner. But if you go to bed and think, oh my gosh, I felt so loved today in these different ways, and I notice those ways and I'm open to those ways and I see the way that this is playing out in my life and I just feel loved, oh my gosh, love starts coming in from all different directions in some amazing ways. And I know love is kind of this really broad, big topic because it's different for different people. And I think it's one of the core things that we as humans want is either, love, friendship, companionship, truly from other humans. We are very social animals. I think that was part of why, COVID was such a struggle for people in the pandemic was having to cut ourselves off from, human interaction is not natural for us. And that's not to say that I don't ever enjoy, my downtime and being alone. And I know that there's folks who probably enjoy that quite a bit more than I do, but we still have a craving for some sort of physical connection. I've yet to meet anybody in my life who's like, no, I absolutely want to live on the top of a mountain and never see another human being again. I don't want to have a partner. I don't want to be kissed and loved and hugged and have, somebody to share my day with. I've yet to meet that person. So on that note, really stop and consider when I go to bed tonight, how do I want to feel? What are the feelings that I would like to have about how my day went? And here's the thing, if you're struggling with ways to identify this, and you're also struggling with how to feel that way when you go to bed. The other thing that I always recommend is doing a list of joys. And I had someone recently tell me, I'm in a position that I'm struggling to think of what brings me joy. So my recommendation has been on my other content, and I'll go over it quickly here, to sit down and write out a list of relatively small things that bring you joy. Some examples for me is that I love taking my dog out on a walk. Hopefully you can hear that. He's sleeping behind me, and if I say the word too loud, I'm going to have to pause this and go take him before he's sad. But so that's one of the things that I love. It just brings me joy because he's so happy when we go and he's so stinking adorable. And then I get outside and I get to enjoy being outside. And I also really love birds. Like, I have found it was actually something that I learned in the pandemic that watching birds and listening to birds just warms my soul. It makes me so stinking happy. I don't know really anything about birds. So I joined like Facebook groups that teach me about birds, and I bought a book about birds, and I take pictures of birds and I look them up online. Yes, this is something that I found I just absolutely love. I have bird feeders out in my backyard. I just think birds are amazing. And so part of this walk that I'm able to do with him is that I get to check out the birds. So I purposely take a route that has these really tall grasses, and it has the coolest birds in them, and I can hear them singing, and they're flying around, and I see quite a few of them, and I just really enjoy that. I also really love getting sunshine on my skin. So I live in a state I am in the US, and I live in a state that gets a ton of sunshine. And I absolutely love being outside and really considering about how the sun feels on my skin and how it feels on my face. And I'm also thankful to know that, getting sunlight in the morning without, sunglasses or through a window, it's actually very healthy for you, and it helps your sleep cycles. So it's, something then that I feel like I'm also doing good for myself. I'm, outside, I'm getting the sunlight, I'm enjoying the birds, I'm spending some really awesome time with my dog. A lot of times one of my kids or my husband will go with me, and I really enjoy that time as well. I've added, listening to a podcast sometimes if I'm out by myself, but I only listen with one earbud so that I can also pause and listen to the birds at the times that they're, singing quite loudly. And that's on habit stacking. And I'll get into that in a different episode. I'm not going to go over that today, but there is habit stacking, which is really important and kind of helps you build these healthy habits. But so from this one thing that I listed as a joy for myself, which is taking him out, I found all these other parts that I'm like, wow, this really brings me joy. And this is such a great way to start my day. And this makes me happy. And this makes me happy. And then I started focusing on it. And I, didn't notice the parts that maybe were not as exciting. Like for any dog owners out there, sometimes there's waste that you have to pick up. And my dog weighs 130 pounds. It is not small waste and it is not enjoyable. It's not part of the walk that I really like. I said that loud. Luckily, he didn't wake up. But so for me, it was like that part became not as much of I have to pick this up, gross. And not to say that I enjoy it or that I'm grateful for it, but it's not as feeling because I have all these other really amazing parts. And that goes back to the filling of the cup. So I have a blog post on my website if you'd like to check it out. And it talks about being selfish. And the reason that I use the word selfish is because in the English language, at least, there's not a word for taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. And when I say that I put myself first, it does not mean that I won't do just about anything for my family. If one of my children or my brother or my sister or one of my parents or honestly, a bunch of my friends, or my nieces and nephews, if they called me at 3:00 in the morning and were like, I need you, I would jump out of bed and be out that door before you could believe it. I started to leave one day when somebody called me just recently saying, hey, I need you. I need your help right now. I had to run back in the house because I started to leave without shoes on. So that's how quickly I will get up and leave for these people who are important in my life. So when I say that I put myself first, it's not to say that it is at the detriment of anyone that I love or care about or other people, because it definitely is not. I find myself to be empathetic with even folks that I don't know. I see myself as very compassionate and I do want to give to others. I can't give to people if I'm miserable. I can't give to others if I don't feel good and I'm not taking care of myself. And unfortunately, in the English language, the word for that is only selfish. And selfish is not defined well. So if you're listening to this and you hear me say that you need to be selfish, please understand it's because I don't have a positive word to use for it. And if you have one, and I'm just finding that my vocabulary skills are not as fantastic as maybe I have considered them to be, shoot me an email or hit me up on one of my channels so that you can teach me some new vocabulary that I can use on here because I would love it. I think it's very important to fill your cup and take care of you and make sure that you're doing things for you. My kids and I have a phenomenal relationship. I think if you asked any of them, and I have an adult child, she's 24, which is just mind-blowing to me. I'm sorry, I have to sit for a moment because that just blows my mind every time I say it, but she's 24. And then I have 2 teenage sons. And I think all of my kids would say that we have like a really phenomenal relationship. Although my youngest might give quite the sassy answer because he is definitely my most sarcastic, sassy child, which I just greatly appreciate about him. He's really wonderful and quite hilarious. But all of my kids have a really great relationship with me. They also know I'm going to take care of myself. They know that when I'm working on this stuff, it's important to me and I'm putting focus into it. They know that mom likes to go take a bath and I want to be left alone while I'm taking that bath. They know that I pack water for myself and a lot of other people in my family do not. And this is kind of a running joke in my family, and that I will share my water with you, but you cannot drink the last of my water. That is my water. I packed it and you are more than welcome to take a drink, but there better be a drink left for mom. And that is not a lack of love. That is a embodiment of self-love. And I can take care of myself and still give to the people who are important to me in really fantastic, amazing ways. And I appreciate that. And I think it's important to not lose yourself. And I went for very many years where I did. And I really tried to be selfless because I thought that was what you were supposed to do as a mother, and just keep giving and giving and giving. And what I found is that it kind of breeds some resentment. I didn't necessarily resent my children by any means, but I did feel resentment just overall in life. Like, is this really what I'm going to be doing? Like, I'm not finding enjoyment for me. Where is the joy for my life? So when you sit down to do that list of joys, really consider yourself. One of mine too is that I really love to bake, and I especially love to bake and cook for people that I love because I like seeing them happy eating the food that I've made. And honestly, one of the joys that I kind of stack on top of that is that I like wearing an apron. I don't know why, but there's just something about being in some little adorable apron and baking that just makes me happy, and I really enjoy it. And so that's something that I do. And so it's nice to find those things that it's here's a small thing that I did saying baking, and here's something that I can add to it that makes me feel a bit cuter and more fun is, wearing this little apron. And my mom gave me an apron that's got little cupcakes all over it. And that's probably another reason why I enjoy it so much, is because it's a gift from somebody that I really love. And it makes me think of my mom and her adorable little face when she gave me the cupcake apron. And so that adds joy to what I'm doing there as well. So really sit and think, okay, what are these small things that I enjoy that really bring me joy and kind of build up some happiness in my life? So do a list of those, and then take a look and say, okay, what can I add to my day? And you say, all right, here we go. I'm going to add that I really like to enjoy a good cup of coffee. Now, when you're enjoying that good cup of coffee, I want you to really put yourself into the moment of considering what you are doing. Become completely present. So take a deep inhale of the coffee, recognize how it smells, maybe feel the steam as it hits your face. Bring it up to your lips, feel the warmth of the liquid on your lips and in your mouth and going down your throat. Think about how everything feels. Really become part of that moment. It sounds super woo-woo maybe, but I'm telling you, the more that you do this, the more fantastic and amazing it starts to feel. And you can do this with a whole list of items. And then what's nice is that when you maybe are having a day that you're feeling a bit more down, you can take a look at that list and say, okay, what can I do that's going to add some joy to my day? So I'm kind of struggling. What is something that I can do, even if I take 5 minutes out to go do this, but something for me that I can go do and go enjoy and kind of bring me out of whatever funk maybe I might be in. And so when this person reached out to me and they're like, I'm struggling to figure out what brings me joy right now. I'm in a really tough time and I don't know what's going to bring me that joy. One of the recommendations that I would have would be to ask other people who love you. So go to your family, go to coworkers that are close to you, go to friends, whoever it is, and ask, what do you think are some things that I enjoy doing? And you might be shocked at how much they realize this about you and how they can answer this question for you. And what I have found, and I think what this other person also found once they got started on the list, was, oh man, once I get going, it's kind of easy to start adding things. It's like what I was talking about before. I enjoy taking my dog. Well, I also realize that while I'm out there, I enjoy the fresh air. I enjoy listening to the birds. I enjoy having the sun on my skin. I enjoy listening to an uplifting podcast. So now I have this list that has multiple other things to it. So let's say that I'm not in a position that I can go out, with him. And instead I need, I only have, let's say 3 minutes before my next call for work. And I really need to kind of boost myself up. Well, I can take a look at my list and say, well, I like listening to the birds and I like having the sun on my skin. I'm going to go sit outside for 2 minutes, close my eyes and just focus on what I can hear and what I feel on my skin. So I'm going to go sit in the sunshine. I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. That gives me 1 minute to go get on my call. And because I focused on that present moment and kind of rerouted whatever my brain was deciding to go down, I'm telling you, it will start to really change your day, and it'll start to just like perk you up again. There was somebody on my YouTube channel that, actually, it might not have been on my YouTube channel. It might have been a video that I was a guest on, but they made a comment about how when they did their list of joys, one of them was playing the guitar. And they actually picked up their guitar and played it for the first time in years because of making this list. And they're like, wait a minute, I like doing this, yet for some reason I haven't been doing it. And so hearing that kind of stuff, I think is just amazing. And again, if you're struggling with trying to figure out what it is that brings you joy, by all means, ask somebody who's close to you. Just, your mom, your dad, brother, sister, a good friend, your cousin, whoever that is, just ask them. And I'm sure that they'll have kind of some ideas for you to at least get that list kicked off and getting it started. I also just want to take another moment to remind anybody that if you are greatly struggling and you're considering hurting yourself or hurting others, please do seek professional help in your area. There's some amazing therapists that you can either contact via like a Zoom call or meet in person that I think could really get you back on a really good track of feeling better and kind of recognizing what's going on with you. And there is no shame in reaching out for help. I am not a therapist. I do not have a degree in any of this. I'm sharing things that I found helped me and have helped others when I've shared it with them. But if you are struggling, please, by all means, do seek some professional assistance in your area. Okay, so now at this point, we've gone over the list of joys, and we've also gone over asking yourself, how is it that I want to feel? So the next part that I'd really like to talk about is the way that you're talking to yourself and also the conversations that you're having in your own head, either about events that you're concerned about or, something that might be upcoming that you really don't want to do. Taking some time out to really start paying attention to what's going on in your head at any point in time is becoming aware of things that you may want to change. So either that's the way that you're talking about yourself or the conversations that you're having with others. You have to realize that no matter what, you're always making an assumption. So when you are making this assumption, it's based on whatever kind of feedback you're getting from the world. And essentially, I have found and have proven to myself that the more that I start questioning my own thoughts, the way that I'm talking to people in my head and the things that I'm saying to myself, the more that my internal state starts to shift. And I really start to see a shift in the way that I'm perceiving the world is also reacting to me. So it goes back to when we were talking about the newspaper earlier in this episode and the folks who were spoken to nicely and then the ones that were spoken to a bit more curtly. So the ones that were spoken to more nicely were able to recognize the positive and grab onto that and see that the answer was right in front of their face. The ones who did not get as nice of treatment struggled with that, and most of them did not see it, and it took them longer to count all the pictures that were in the newspaper, and they found that very frustrating, and I don't blame them. I would find that frustrating as well. But so when you start to shift the way that you talk about yourself and the assumptions that you make about how others see you and perceive you and are talking about you or maybe think about you, the world just starts to react a little bit different. I see the world as like one big mirror. So whatever I'm putting out, I'm getting back. And whether you look at that as like a vibrational match or, whatever, where your attention goes, that's what persists in your life, whatever kind of deal it is. All I know is that it works. So the more that I focus on me, the things that are not good for me kind of start to naturally fall out of my life. So I'm not giving them attention anymore. I'm not fueling whatever kind of flame is coming from maybe the people who are not being as nice. And I'm perceiving the ones that are really supporting me and they're lifting me up. And I'm seeing the people who love me for me bubble up to the surface. And it really comes down to perception and the assumptions that you're making. I had, a person at work a few years ago that I just really assumed they did not like me very much. Their kind of behavior to me felt very cold, and I didn't think they wanted anything to do with me. It just definitely did not like me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's, their thing. We're coworkers and I can move on from that, and I'll just try to avoid them as much as I can. As I started to shift the way that I felt about myself, the conversations that I was having, within my own head, I realized that that's actually just the way that they are, and that it really had nothing to do with me. It wasn't necessarily that they disliked me by any means. They actually thought quite fondly of me and thought quite highly of me and the work that I did. But my perception of them was able to change when, one, I recognized that this is how that they are. But I also started talking to myself nicer and making more assumptions that people who are around me like me. I'm a likable person. I'm enjoyable to be around. And that does not mean that I'm for everybody. I definitely understand that one as well. There are some people that I'm just not for them. But I also don't think that they hate me. I'm just not maybe their favorite. And I'm not who they want to listen to. And I'm not who they want to go out to dinner with. And that's totally fine. I completely respect that. I've got people that I connect with much closer, in life, and it's just kind of the natural progression of things. And I think it's okay to start really recognizing that and accepting that as part of how the world works. But the more that you are kind to yourself, and you start focusing on the things around you that are positive, or the people who are interacting with you in a positive way, the more you'll start to pick up on it more and more. You'll start to notice more of those positives. So something that I started doing, and I've heard this done in multiple different ways, and I'll kind of talk to them a little bit more, was I started to recognize when people were like overly nice to me. So either like made a compliment, about me, or made me feel really wanted, made me feel very loved. And, this is not just like in a sexual partner kind of way, but I mean, overall, just people enjoying me. And I started to consciously pay attention to those moments. What are people saying nice about me? Where is a nice compliment? When are things going my way? And I would start to notice it and just say, yeah, of course that happens because people like me. Or yes, of course that happens because things always tend to go my way. And I had the belief that it's like it all ends up playing out exactly as it should. And I have faith in that. I have said on my YouTube channel that my mom always instilled in us that you just give it to God. And I felt like that's what I was doing, is I was just saying, yeah, of course it works out for me. I give it to God and he works out the rest. I don't really have to deal with it. But the more that you become relaxed in that, the more that the world it really starts to just work out well for you. And so I've heard this, there was like the lucky girl syndrome that went around, TikTok recently, and it was, people saying that they're the luckiest girl. And I know that some struggled with that. And I really think it's because if you are doing a fake it and you are trying to force this kind of fake, I'm so lucky, but what you're actually recognizing in your life are the ways that you're not lucky, you're actually going to end up getting the ones that you're not lucky. So you have to kind of tie those together and start looking for ways maybe that you're lucky, or looking for ways that people show you love. And it can be in something very small. So, somebody holds the door open for me, I can be like, oh, that is so kind. Like that person is showing me kindness. That person is showing me that they're, being nice to me because I'm so lucky, or everything always works out for me. And the more that you start to recognize those pieces, the other stuff just tends to fall away. And again, whether that's, your perception or the vibration or what you're attracting into your life, at some point, who cares what it actually is? All that I know is that it works, and I've seen it work in my life. So I leave you today with kind of those thoughts. I hope that you found value in the information that I shared. I am really looking forward to doing additional podcasts. I will start now publishing a podcast every Friday. I definitely hope to do around the same time. That is the plan. So it's about 11 a.m. where I currently am. Probably about 11:30 once I get this buttoned up and published, and that'll be my intention for every Friday around 11:30. And then you can find additional content on a more daily basis on my YouTube and my Instagram channels. So I greatly appreciate you being here. I hope that you enjoyed this. Definitely reach out if you have anything to share, and I hope you have a beautiful week. Hey all, thank you again for joining me for this podcast today. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm extremely happy to have you here. It's a very exciting journey that we're on. I wanted to do a quick reminder that if you want to visit my website, you can do so at ceciliahendricks.com. And you can also find me on YouTube at Unleashing Happiness.